Now, I don't normally keep up with no Hollywood celebrity drama on this channel, but when I say this Ezra Miller situation is interesting, I really mean it, guys. It is very interesting to look at. For those of y'all who don't know who Ezra Miller is, they're best known for playing the Flash in the DC comic movies, with the new Solo movie coming out soon, so they ain't no small movie star nothing. They are very high up in the Hollywood social ladder. In the past 2 years, however, Ezra has been getting themselves into a bit of controversy, and that controversy has grown so massive that it could not only impact their career, but an entire catalog of movies currently in production. Now, I want to point out now at the beginning of the video that a lot of stuff we're about to go over includes allegations and nothing more, so it's best to keep a skeptical mind open, as there are many questions that we may never get the answer to. With all that being said, let's get right into everything. On January 27th, 2022, Ezra would post a video telling members of the KKK to kill themselves.
This is a message for the Beulahville chapter of the North Carolina Ku Klux Klan. Look, if y'all want to die, I suggest just killing yourselves with your own guns.
The video was seen as a nothing burger at the time, but trust me, we'll come back to it later. The real story begins on April 6, 2022, as news came out that earlier that week, Ezra Miller had been in a fight outside a bar in Iceland. Along with this news was a date of the incident happening on April 1st, and a video showing Ezra and the unknown person fighting each other.
Learn it? Did you want to fight? Is that the deal? Whoa, bro. Fight?
According to witnesses, the fight took place after a bunch of pushy fans caused Ezra to lose their cool, and they lost their temper on the woman in the video. Ezra was escorted off the premises while still upset and angry, and that was the end of that incident. People were a bit confused about what to make of this situation at first, as it was very clear the woman who was attacked was in a jestful and jovial mood, all the way up until she was dragged to the ground and the people recording became aware that Ezra was serious. Even when I saw it back when it happened, I thought to myself it was maybe a case of language barriers, and perhaps the woman was joking around with Ezra before the fight took place, but they couldn't tell because of the language not being English. Either way, I still thought it was a bad look, but I gave the benefit of the doubt, as all the people had to go by was a video clip with very mixed signals coming from both sides. Now, that benefit of the doubt will be swiftly eliminated, as in the early morning on March 28th, 2022, Ezra will be arrested for disorderly conduct and harassment at a bar in Hilo, Hawaii. The story goes that they got agitated as others were singing karaoke and began to yell obscenities before going on stage and grabbing the microphone from a 23-year-old woman who was singing. Soon after, they lunged at a 32-year-old man playing darts minded his own business. The bar owner would ask them to calm down to no avail, and eventually the police were called.
I was playing darts.
Okay. And then what?
With my good girl.
Okay.
And he come right up to me and just like,
You started shouting?
no. I'm not gonna spit on him.
Okay, so he spit in your face.
Two. And I was
Okay.
like, oh, what's up, cuz?
Okay.
Like, what's up?
Okay.
And then I
Example.
jumped in and held him back.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
you spit in your face for no reason.
yeah. I was like way across the room.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like he thought he was somebody else.
Don't chase him out.
No. I got assaulted and I started filming.
Okay.
can show you the video.
Let's talk stories outside.
Let's talk story outside.
And Ezra Miller, this is under warrants for these caution codes on stable 29 Caucasian Hill.
I got assaulted in this bar twice in a row. I film myself when I get assaulted for NFT crypto art. What's your name? What's your badge number? Tell me your name and your badge number.
White key.
Ezra.
Full name, full badge number. Tell me your name and your badge number. Tell me your name and your badge number. Please don't touch me. Tell me your name and your badge number. Now. Tell me your name and your badge number
White key
now.
136.
Sir, get off.
You.
Get off the road.
Central 131.
I'm being arrested for disorderly conduct?
Yeah.
Okay. I was assaulted, you understand that, right?
Okay.
Well, you know, you could have told us that instead of running away and playing all of these theatrics. You could have just told us that.
I'm sorry,
No, you're not
officer.
sorry. You could have took
I am
this thing
sorry.
real quick. But
I am
no,
sorry.
you wanted to play the game.
I was
and now-
complying.
Well, you wasn't complying.
I was. You said get off the road, I got off the road.
No, you didn't.
I did.
No, you
I
haven't.
walked on the edge of the
Actually,
road.
Central 131 and 150.
So what did I do wrong?
Getting arrested for you spit in somebody's
A
face.
guy in that bar declared himself as a Nazi. I have it on film, and he attacked me.
Okay, so?
I claim my 9th Amendment rights to not be unlawfully persecuted for a crime of no designation, disorderly conduct being something I am unguilty of. I claim my Fourth Amendment rights to not be searched and seized on no probable cause that you will not be able to offer in a court of law. I claim my Fourth Amendment rights to not be searched and seized. Please do not touch my ring.
Yes, come on.
Okay.
You'll get it
I
right
claim my
after.
Fourth Amendment
Sir,
rights
sir,
to
it's
not
gonna
have
be right
search
here,
and
okay?
seizure
We're just letting you know it's gonna be right here.
unlawfully without probable cause. I claim my Fourth Amendment rights to not be unlawful. Hey, you just touched my penis. Please don't do that.
No, I didn't.
I'm not transgender, non-binary. I don't want to be searched by a man. I'm transgender, non-binary, and I don't want to be searched by a man. I claim my Fourth Amendment rights. These are Nerf guns, just in case you worry that they're bullets. Those are Nerf bullets.
Thank you for letting
They
me
are fake and they are a toy.
Thank you for letting
This is my belt buckle and my Nerf bullets.
I appreciate that.
Please don't take them from me. The flash ring means a lot to me. It's very valuable. Just let me sit with my hands facing out so I don't get nerve damage. I'm a musician, so my nerves in my hands are important to me. Please don't hurt them. Please, I beg you. I have nerve damage from police handcuffs. From my life in New Jersey. I know y'all are not those cops, but please, please do not damage my nerves in my hands again. It'd be really, really awful for me. I understand, officer, whatever you need.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely cooperate.
Because our island is so small, there's only just one.
Puna has a different one then.
Puna has a different one.
Okay, but they're just labeled by neighborhood?
Yes.
Okay, got
so
it.
Puna has a different one.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes. Sorry, sir.
I'm sorry. I'm not a sir. I'm transgender, non-binary.
Okay.
Please don't refer me as sir. It's not a bad right use.
Okay.
That's
No, I was
bigotry.
just trying to be
If
respectful.
you fail to do that again, that is an act of intentional bigotry and it is a technical hate crime according to U.S. federal law. Please call me they, them, theirs. You can use the term mix or mixio if you prefer. I'm transgender, non-binary. Mafu wahine.
Okay, hold on.
What? What's happening? What's happening?
Sit down.
Is your body cam still on?
Yeah, sit down.
Would you make sure it's on?
Yeah, it's on. I'm coming, sir. Yes, sir.
Is it time to come out for real?
Yep.
Just checking. Seemed a little tense last time. Please don't touch any of it. It's all sacred religious material. None of it is illegal in any capacity. I really appreciate if you didn't touch it because it's all from my religion, Judaism.
Okay, put your hand up on the wall.
Bleed, dude.
Okay, put your hands on the wall.
I'm bleeding. Can I get medical treatment? I'm bleeding. I don't like disinfectant. I was cut by the cop.
I need to take this watch.
I'm bleeding. Please get medical attention. Yes. Or just get released and then I can go see it myself.
Can this come on?
Yeah, sure. But it's gonna hurt my wound, so please don't do that. Ow, fuck. Ow, fuck, dude, ow! Your body cam on.
Yep.
Okay. Good.
Just gonna pat you down one more time.
A day later, on March 29th, a couple in Hawaii would file a temporary restraining order against Ezra, claiming that they harassed and threatened them. The couple alleges that Ezra burst into their bedroom and threatened the male victim, saying, "I will bury you and your slut wife," along with stealing multiple of the couple's personal belongings, including a social security card, wallet, passport, driver's license, and bank cards. Ezra had been staying in the couple's home while in Hawaii after they met the actor at a farmer's market, and were the ones that bailed Ezra out of jail for $500 after being arrested earlier that very morning. Suddenly, the arrest at the bar turned into much more, and yet there was still a little more info to go over. A day later, on March 30th, more footage would come out of Ezra being denied entry to a bar earlier that month, with witnesses claiming that it was because they were kicked out of another bar across the street, showing that they didn't want to deal with them in their own establishment. So now we know that Ezra has been in Hawaii for about a month and they already got themselves a reputation. Now when this news came out, people immediately started to dig into things and give their own opinions. Lots of people made drawbacks to the incident in Iceland, and others again assumed it was just another celebrity having too much to drink and kind of screwing everything up. That is, up until the news about the restraining order came out, along with the video showing that they had been denied entry at another bar earlier that month, and suddenly this wasn't just another bad night for a celebrity. It seemed like there was much more going on, and once all the news started to come out, the pieces were starting to be put together. Ezra has more or less been a nuisance during their time in Hawaii thus far, and public opinion will start to sway on the movie star. Some hope that it was all maybe just a really weird misunderstanding, while still keeping a close eye on them, of course. Footage of Ezra dancing in a bar would come out, and the next day the couple would drop their restraining order on them too, all on their own accord. People would still make their jokes and such, but it started to look like everything was just a really bad month for the actor, as things seemed to finally be settling down. Unfortunately for those few still on Ezra's side, all their hopes would quickly be dashed away. In the early morning of April 19th, Ezra would be arrested yet again in Hawaii, this time for second-degree assault. They got annoyed after being asked to leave a friend's home and threw a chair at a 26-year-old woman, leaving her with a half-inch gash on her forehead. Ezra would soon leave the residence before police arrived, but they would end up arresting them at a traffic stop at around 1:30 in the morning. A video would leak of Ezra hanging around while a news report of their arrest played a day after. And a couple weeks later on May 7th, part of the 911 call would be leaked, showing that the person had been offering their home to him, adding more credibility to the original arrest claims.
I have Ezra Miller at my house right now. We have been offering our home to him, and he came into our home and he's threatening us right now. He hit me in the head with a chair, and I'm bleeding.
So do you need medical attention?
No, I don't need medical assistance. I need the police here
Yeah,
now.
so how old is he?
I don't know. He's in his 30s. He's in his 30s. I'm 26.
Okay,
They're driving. If you see them on the road, they're leaving. They're trying to leave our premises right now. They're driving away in a gray car, a gray truck.
Okay, that's two different things. Is it a truck or is it a car?
It's a gray truck. And they are locally right now, they are located in Hilo as well. Ezra Miller is the person that is the one that was in our home. And he threw this chair at me, he assaulted me, he's in our home, and we have been here very nice to him, and he did this to us tonight.
If people had any sort of hope that Ezra was just having a really bad month, that was all but gone by now, as there have been multiple instances of them getting arrested and being a downright menace throughout their time in Hawaii. Yet, there was still more to go over, and something that people completely missed at the time. On April 23rd, a TikTok video from Mia Solange would start making the rounds, basically them calling Ezra a piece of shit abuser, along with a montage of never before seen pictures that they've taken with Ezra, showing their relationship to be close. People would trace this back to a post made by Twitter user Lot of Gay Crimes, who interviewed Mia earlier that month on April 1st, posting their claims against Ezra, saying how they tried to fly them out, and when their flight ran into issues, Ezra started to cuss out whoever was helping them, and being an asshole when they didn't need to. To add to that, they had an intimate encounter with Ezra, and Ezra was misgendering them the whole time, along with adding some of the pictures that we came across in the viral TikTok from earlier. Mia would make more claims saying that Ezra never threatened them, but when they got physical they would bite them, and shows pictures of said biting that took place. Mia would end off saying how Ezra wanted to get married with them, and how they were always really strange to interact with at times. This set off a lot of alarms for people, as these allegations seemed to carry some weight. The pictures speak for themselves, no one's ever seen them before, and given that there were so many of Ezra just hanging about with someone that we've never seen before, it really adds credibility to Mia's claims. This somewhat fell under the radar, however, as people were still focused on the incidents in Hawaii. Hell, some people would wonder why they were in Hawaii to begin with, and soon that question would be answered with yet another allegation made against them, this time by someone they've known since they were teenagers. In February 2022, Ezra would hit up their good friend Oliver Ignatius, a music producer, and pitch them a musical project idea that they should work on together. Oliver accepted the offer as they had known each other for a long time, and so the two would meet up in Hawaii to start the work. The process was tough, but things were headed in a good direction, and so Oliver would head back home and continue work on what they got done together. He would hit up rapper Gus Rivera, add his rap to a track, finish up a couple of songs, before heading back to Hawaii. Oliver was a bit nervous now as the news of Ezra being arrested multiple times had come out, and those nerves would soon grow as when listening to a track about a female friend who was murdered by her husband, Ezra started to throw an aggressive temper tantrum as quoted by Oliver. Oliver would quit the project on moral grounds, but Ezra would end up leaking all the unfinished music onto SoundCloud and posted the link in their Instagram bio, trying to imply it was their own work instead of a group effort. Rivera was thankfully paid for his feature on the song, but both him and Oliver chose to speak out about this, and as of now they do wish Ezra the best, but Oliver plans to sue if he has to in order to get that unfinished music taken down for good. With all this news going around of Ezra being an outright dickhead, people had no sympathy for them anymore. Memes were pouring throughout the internet, and Warner Brothers, oh, we haven't even gotten into them yet. They now had a serious problem on their hands. The new Flash movie is supposed to come out next year, but how do you market a movie around the main character when the actor is caught up in a controversy as big as this? On March 30th, it was leaked that they and DC execs had an emergency meeting after the first arrest with a consensus to pause any future projects involving the actor for the time being. A normal and understandable response to any actor embroiled in negative media light. Warner Brothers would rebuke these claims on May 6th and say that no meeting took place, but let's face it, whether you want to believe that is up to y'all watching right now. Either way, it looked like Warner Brothers was watching the news very carefully and planning on what to do next with Ezra with the months leading up to the movie's premiere. One thing that was uncertain though was whether they wanted to keep them on deck with any future films involving the Flash. Too much money was spent in the production of the movie, so recasting and reshooting was out of the picture, and it seems the only move to make would be to brute force their way in marketing and downplay anything and everything that has happened thus far. After all, people get drunk and act out badly sometimes, so by the time the movie trailers came out and the movie itself came out, people would push it aside and forgive Ezra for what they did. If only that were the case. On June 8th, 2022, news had come out on Twitter that Chase Iron Eyes and Sarah Jumping Eagle would file a protective order against Ezra on behalf of their child, Takata Iron Eyes, an 18-year-old who had been living with Miller since December 2021. The family originally met Ezra during protests in 2016, and Ezra would develop a friendship with the then 12-year-old Takata. In 2017, Ezra would fly out a now 14-year-old Takata to visit the set of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Him, and as the years progressed, the parents claimed that Ezra would supply Takata with alcohol and drugs, such as LSD, weed, and ketamine, and physically abuse them. The parents would fly to the Vermont farm she was on to see their child and take him home after finding her driver's license, car keys, and ATM card missing, and seeing bruises on their body as well. Takata would eventually fly back out to Ezra a few weeks later and has been traveling with them ever since, including being seen in the video where Ezra was denied entry into the bar in Hawaii and in the dancing video too. On June 5th, Takata would come out with a statement on Instagram to try and clarify everything up, saying that Ezra has been helping them during a tough downward spiral after dropping out of school. Their friends soon passed afterwards, and they say Ezra was there for them during this tough moment in their life. They say they don't need any help and that their father allegations are just that, allegations with no weight or merit, calling him transphobic, and that they are now aware of the emotional and psychological manipulation in their home life. People would question the statement, and so 4 days later, on June 9th, Takata would post a video on Instagram explaining everything to the people face to face rather than just text.
Alright. Hi guys. Hi folks. I've become aware that some people are saying that my statements were not written by me. I'd like to clarify that they are, in fact, directly from me. Nobody is controlling my Instagram account. I don't have a phone right now out of my own personal conviction. And honestly, it's really distressing that the narrative of the victim in question is not being granted and trust. I worked really hard to make really clear what was going on. And if the statements are too profoundly contrasting to whatever assumptions those of us have garnered and have chosen to carry, I'd like to say that it's nobody's business and that no one is owed a story or an outcome. This is my life. These are my decisions. And I'm disappointed in my parents and the press in every way. Thank you.
On June 10th, LA Times would interview Chase Iron Eyes about the protective order, and news came out that the court cannot locate Ezra, meaning they can't serve the order unless they find them. People were stumped as to what was going on now, as it was clear Ezra was running from the law and trying to stay hidden, not to mention all the stuff that was going down between the Iron Eyes family and Ezra. One thing that caught my eye was Tokata's first Instagram statement was made 3 days before the news broke of the family filing the protective order, meaning that shit had been going down beforehand and had already been getting to a boiling point. The answer to what had been going down before would be answered a day later, on June 11th, as an interview with Tokata's uncle Chief Bear Cross will come out, and an interview full of a lot of serious allegations against Ezra. Remember that story of Ezra flying Tokata out to the set of Fantastic Beasts? That was true, but something that the family just learned was that Ezra apparently attempted to sleep in the same bed as Tokata, all while they were 14 and Ezra was 25, before Ezra was forced to sleep elsewhere. When Tokata turned 16, Ezra convinced their parents to let them attend a private school an hour away from Ezra's farm in Vermont, and seeing it as an excellent opportunity for their child to pursue their dreams while getting proper education, they happily agreed. Unbeknownst to them, however, Tokata would regularly visit Ezra's farm and do a multitude of drugs. Their grades would slip, and they would stop going to school in December 2021. In the early morning of December 31st, 2021, Tokata would call her uncle Chief Bear Cross and ask if they could stay the night. He agreed and soon met Ezra the next morning, saying they had an ugly attitude and noticed that when they didn't show interest in the fact they're a movie star, Ezra didn't like that. And that throughout the day he grew more distaste for Ezra, noticing that they smelled like weed all the time, and that all they wanted to do was smoke and keep Tokata within eyesight, which he found to be very strange. At one point, Ezra was even smoking weed mixed with ketamine, and that they started to get paranoid, talking about how the FBI was out to get them. Back at Chief Bear Cross's house, Ezra would pull out a 40 from his jacket while posing for a picture with him, and soon enough all the warning signs were starting to blare off in his head. Bear Cross states that he would never have invited Ezra into the house if he knew they had a gun, no matter how famous they are, and that they're violent towards women and it makes children unsafe. He goes over how Ezra would constantly be around Tokata at every moment possible, including at one point having sex together on a bed outside. Ezra had Tokata wrapped around their finger, and that would only become more apparent from here on out. After January 1st, Chase Iron Eyes would travel with Tokata, Ezra, and 2 other women, Stella Marbles, and the aforementioned Mia Solange from the story that broke on April 23rd. Alongside adding even more credibility to Mia's eventual claims, Chase would say that Ezra would be repeatedly saying that they were the second coming of Jesus Christ before pulling out their gun. On January 25th, Ezra would drug Tokata in Brooklyn, New York with LSD and incapacitate them, eventually calling Tokata's parents on January 29th to inform them with the news. As we talked about at the very beginning, just 2 days earlier, Ezra posted the video telling the KKK members to kill themselves, and during this manic episode was gathering up guns and ammo from Vermont to North Carolina for a potential confrontation with the hate group, all while dragging Tokata along during her incapacitated state and subjecting them to a potential life-threatening situation. Tokata's parents would rush to Ezra's farm in Vermont to rescue them on January 30th, which they successfully did the very next day. This is when they found out Tokata was missing multiple things and noticed some bruises on their arm. A witness on the farm was able to confirm that this happened when Ezra pinned Tokata down after they failed to answer them, and that the witness had to forcibly remove Ezra and break their grasp on Tokata. As for how Ezra was able to steal Tokata's stuff, they apparently broke into their friend's house and stole their computer, passport, driver's license, car keys, and cell phone. Back with their parents, Tokata was able to confirm that Ezra indeed did pin them down and that's what caused the bruising, and that a person did intervene to stop Ezra to get them off. Tokata would go on to ask for some new belongings after Ezra stole them, and their parents would oblige in doing so. Tokata would then lie and say they were going to Brooklyn to stay with a friend, but instead met up with Ezra once they were in New York. They were spotted in LA in late February or early March, and soon accompanied them to Hawaii, where Ezra's public reign of terror began. On April 27th, Chase Iron Eyes would try to serve an order for substance abuse to Ezra and to get his child back. That failed, and Tokata and Ezra fled from them from the farm in Vermont. On May 8th, Tokata's mother, Sarah Jumping Eagle, was on a phone call with them when Ezra suddenly took over and started to berate her, saying how she's emotionally abusing Tokata and how they now want to go by the name Gibson and that they're non-binary transgender. Sarah would go back and forth with Ezra and tell them that it was ironic to hear a speech about emotional abuse coming from the person who drugged and physically assaulted Tokata, and the call would apparently end right after abruptly. Meanwhile, Chase successfully petitioned for temporary guardianship on May 17th, and again, Tokata and Ezra fled, this time to LA. On May 27th, Chase and Sarah would find the approximate location of Tokata, learning that Ezra has been controlling them ever since they got to the city, not letting them go out for dinner without permission and such. On May 29th, they would knock on the residence Tokata was staying in, and someone named Rosie would answer the door. When asked if Tokata was present, Rosie would pause and look towards Ezra's way, in which they eventually responded with, "Sarah, we are not going to do this here," after she started calling out for her child. Tokata would show up and hug her mother before getting upset and confrontational with their father about the court orders. After 15 minutes of discussion, the trio would flee from the house, and Chase and Sarah would call the police to help them get their child back. Before the police arrived, Ezra would whisper to both Tokata and Rosie, and they would all start to walk quickly down the road. Sarah noticed Tokata was struggling to walk, and so gave them her boots like any mother would, still following them in just her socks now. Ezra would whisper to Tokata again, and they would start running down the street, with Tokata apparently pulling out a knife on her own mother to keep her at bay. An Uber would eventually show up, and as Sarah would reach inside to coax Tokata out, Ezra would slam the door on her arms multiple times to get her off, leaving massive bruises. Sarah would back off, and Ezra would walk down the street to meet Tokata and Rosie at another stop. Sarah would then file a police report to the Santa Monica police that very day, going over the assault by Ezra. On June 9th, an Instagram video by Tokata would come out, and the family would claim that it's Ezra behind all this madness, trying to control the narrative and everything in Tokata's life. Well, that was a lot to unpack and gives a lot of insight into just how crazy Ezra might be. Ever since Ezra met Tokata when they were 12, they've been slowly gaining their friendship, tried to sleep in the same bed as them apparently when they were 14, and eventually started to feed them drugs when they turned 16 and were finally away from parental supervision. Lots of this is allegations, mind you, but given that never before seen photos were included of Ezra with the family, it does lend credibility in their favor. People were beyond pissed after hearing about this timeline of events, and so they would start their own internet hunt for Ezra. The problem is, they were nowhere to be found. As people were searching for Ezra, whether in real life or through the internet, they would post a couple of pictures on their Instagram story on June 14th, with two of them in particular seemingly alluding to the fact that they're knowingly hiding from the police and the law before deleting their account altogether shortly after. Tokata would continue to proclaim Ezra's innocence, posting a message from their parents in an attempt to show people that they aren't all to be trusted on June 16th. Of course, there was more info to be learned, as also on June 16th, news would break about a mother and her non-binary 12-year-old child getting a temporary harassment prevention order against Ezra after what they did to them the past couple months. On February 2nd, the mother, her child, and their neighbor were hanging out together with Ezra at the neighbor's house. Things were fine until Ezra snapped at the mother for apparent cultural appropriation after talking about traveling with her tribe, so to speak. A conversation about a board game would get heated as the neighbor would ask Ezra about the board game in question, as they claimed it had Rastafarian roots. Ezra would then get up in their face and start to yell at them, saying they don't know what they're talking about and challenging them. Ezra would open their jacket and flash off their gun, saying, and I quote, "Talking like that could get you into a really serious situation," with the mother noticing a bulletproof vest underneath their clothes. Ezra would then focus on the child, saying they have a lot of power to them and that when they don't have any control of them anymore, saying they would be lucky to have someone like me guide them. Ezra would then accuse the mother of being a witch and a vampire before going back to the child and pestering them with compliments, at one point moving their chair closer to them, asking them to add the actor on Instagram, and telling them to pursue fashion as a career. The child would recall how uncomfortable and nervous they were around Ezra, saying that they were scared of them after seeing them yell at their mother and causing her to cry. Ezra would apologize for their behavior, only to return a number of occasions such as April, May, and June. In April, they would make the child uncomfortable by hugging them, and in June came dressed as a cowboy. During that June visit, the child would express interest in horses, and Ezra would say they would get several horses for the child to take care of on their farm back in Vermont. Ever since the news with Takata came out, however, they haven't seen or heard from them ever since. All these stories and allegations seem to revolve around Ezra looking for young people who identify as non-binary and at such a young age to try and befriend them for whatever reason. Mia identifies as non-binary, Tokata identifies as non-binary, and so does the 12-year-old child that Ezra has been pestering. Something weird is going on here, and the constant cycle of drugs that Ezra has been taking and giving to those under their wing hasn't been helping at all. A leak would come out on June 20th that Warner Bros. Has no plans to keep Ezra around after the Flash releases, and yet there was still more news coming out within the next few days to go over. On June 23rd, news would come out about a mother and 3 young children aged 1 through 5 living at Ezra's farm in Vermont. An anonymous source from the farm would claim that there are multiple weapons strewn throughout, and at one point saw the 1-year-old baby put a loose bullet in her mouth while playing with it. The mother would come out and say that they fled with Ezra to get away from the father after meeting them in Hawaii the past March. The father would claim that Ezra had gotten the plane for the others without his knowledge, and that despite the history between him and the mother, he wants to get his kids back as soon as possible. Rolling Stones would claim they had footage of handguns and weapons in the living room alongside some stuffed animals, but that footage hasn't been released to the public, so make of that what you will. Heavy drug use to be reported throughout the house, and that Ezra's close friend Whitney Sutters is growing an illegal weed farm company called Rebel Alliance Cannabis, growing far more on the compound than legally allowed in the state of Vermont. A social worker visited the farm on May 16th and claimed that everything looked good, and things ended soon after that report. On June 26th, the mother of the 3 children, now identified as Ana Rosa, who goes by Savage Calypso on Twitter, would be interviewed by Portuguese magazine Cabana de Leitor and would go into detail on her time on the farm thus far, giving context to what the hell was going on. She claimed that Ezra saved her from her ex, who was very violent and manipulative, attacking her and beating her with a belt at times. Ezra learned of this during their time in Hawaii and got them away from the father as soon as they could, and she's very thankful for that. Anna claims that she has legal custody of her kids, that no weapons are available to children in the house as they are in a separate room, and the story of her child with a bullet in their mouth was a straight up lie. Things end with her stating that Ezra has been sweet to the kids so far, and that she feels relieved to be around someone that shows love towards her children and their actions to show just that. Along with that interview are 2 photos of Ezra with what is assumed to be one of her children, seemingly having a walk in the forest near the farm. Anna would also upload a video to YouTube that has since been privated, going over her experiences on the farm thus far. Things seem to be at a crossroads, as Anna claims everything is good, yet the media is portraying the exact opposite. Speaking of the media, some more news about an old incident would come out, shedding more light on Ezra's bizarre behavior. Remember the choking incident back in April 2020? Well, the woman who got choked would come out and speak about the experience a little over 2 years later on June 30th, 2022, giving a lot of much needed context about what led to their fight. She said she met Ezra at the bar and started to chat with them, and when she noticed they had some wounds on their feet, Ezra clarified that they were from a fight they were in. She would jokingly tell Ezra that she could take him in a fight and to meet her outside in the smoking area in 2 minutes as she walked outside. She claims that they took it as a joke, but that her friend instigated a bit after she went outside to get in on the joke as well, but that Ezra didn't take that instigation as a joke. Eventually, the incident happens outside and people break it up off camera, with Ezra grabbing the bartender by the throat and spitting in his face multiple times until they finally kick them out for good. This context is very important to have, because it does show why the woman seemed to be joking in the video, because she was. She was joking about fighting with Ezra, but it became serious as they couldn't tell if it was a joke or not, and lashed out after expecting a real fight. Attacking the bartender next was a shitty action through and through, but at the very least people now know that this incident was a case of really bad communication. What makes me believe the woman's story is that this all came out during the recent controversies that Ezra is in, and she could have said things to make make them look way worse, but she said stuff that gives them the benefit of the doubt, which tells me she wanted the truth out and nothing more. Of course, this means little to nothing in the grand scheme of things, other than the woman had no malicious intent coming out with her story 2 years after the altercation. Where things get interesting is that also on June 30th, a woman by the name of Nadia will come out about her experiences with Ezra, and of course, there ain't nothing good to say. Nadia met Ezra at an art open in LA in January 2020, and the two hit it off pretty well. They would exchange numbers, and Ezra would send explicit messages before being told to stop as it made her uncomfortable, which Ezra promptly did. On their last night in LA, they hooked up for the night and said their goodbyes, with Nadia remembering that nothing weird happened between the two when they met, and that Ezra was super nice and caring the entire time. They would try to meet up multiple times throughout the next 2 years, but plans kept falling through. Nadia would invite Ezra to the Berlinale Festival in February 2022 as Ezra had time to kill, and one night during the festival they would text her at 4 AM saying that they just arrived but might have to leave the next day. Nadia of course would invite Ezra to her apartment, and the two would start to talk like old friends once more. That is, until Ezra started to roll a cigarette. Nadia told them that they can't smoke inside the house, only outside or on the balcony. After that, Ezra's demeanor instantly changed and said, "I'm the maker of planets, tobacco is sacred," before going on a tirade about how they can do whatever they want, whenever they want. Nadia would tell them to honor her house rules and stood up, and Ezra would tell them to sit down, clarifying that they were talking to her like a dog. Nadia would tell him to leave, and Ezra started to go on about how she's transphobic and a Nazi, and soon the two would go back and forth with each other. Ezra would demean her by negating her as a descendant of Holocaust survivors and start to play a game of who the biggest trauma survivor was in the room. Nadia would call the police on them, and soon Ezra started to go full-blown meltdown on her, saying all sorts of nonsensical things like how she assaulted them and beat them up. Nadia eventually got Ezra out the front door, called off the police, and started to clean up her apartment. Around 30 minutes later, Nadia would hear Ezra trying to break down the front door to the apartment building, claiming that she stole their passport and money. She would find the jacket they left behind that had all the items they were missing and throw it down to them from her balcony before going back inside. Nadia would then block their number, and after learning about the other multiple heinous things they've been doing, decided to come out with her own story against the actor. On July 1st, now back with Anna, she would agree to be interviewed by the YouTuber The Savage Bat. The interview itself isn't anything too new. Anna goes on for the first 13 or so minutes about her experience with her ex and how he's abusive and such. But then the real interesting stuff starts to kick in. Around the 15-minute mark, she goes into how she first met Ezra at a farmer's market and how her ex started getting jealous seeing their friendship blossom. Anna goes on to explain that her ex has 3 other girlfriends, so it makes no sense why he'd be getting jealous in the first place. And then things will culminate at a house gathering. The ex and Ezra started to get into it, and so he pulled a knife on them, which caused Ezra to throw a chair at him, missing and hitting one of the girlfriends instead.
Whenever he was like in the midst of helping me, he went to go talk to him, and I think my ex was suspecting that he was helping me, and he got violent on him. He pulled a knife on Ezra.
He pulled a knife on Ezra?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
And then Ezra tried to like throw a chair in self-defense, and it hit one of his girlfriends. And this was one of the Hawaii incidents of like
that's the chair incident.
That's the
so he's pulled a knife on Ezra. Ezra's missed with the chair and accidentally
hits the girl and
hits the girl in the head.
Tells the girl to call the police and be like, "Oh, Ezra Miller assaulted me." Ezra didn't assault her. She was in the way. While my ex was being violent, he's basically telling her, create this shit and, Ezra, all that stuff. That second one incident had to do with, like, Ezra trying to help me.
So yeah, this is what apparently actually went down in the April 19th incident, and apparently Ezra attacked someone who pulled a knife on him, and the woman on the police call lied to make them look bad. Anna starts to go on about how Rolling Stone published an article of her ex pleading for help to get his children back, and how they didn't even try to contact her, and they both start to talk about a GQ article that was posted on June 27th, a day after her Portuguese interview.
Yeah, here we go. Ezra Miller has been accused of creating unsafe environments around some children and grooming others. The Ezra Miller situation has taken a more disturbing turn. Then, when you've commented underneath,
they hit
saying,
it.
full of shit, I'm so tired of seeing this shit. How does it feel to absolutely fail the truth of journalism? and they muted your comment.
Yeah, but then everybody noticed that they muted me.
They start to go on about the media and how they aren't doing a proper job by only posting allegations with no evidence to back their claims, reiterates that Ezra has been nothing but kind to her ever since meeting them, and ends things off with saying that her ex and the media are spewing false info when it comes to her experience with Ezra. The GQ article hiding Anna's reply is pretty weird if you ask me, and now it seems that this case in particular is turning into a he said, she said type of situation. The only way we'll know what happened on the April 18th into the 19th early morning in Hawaii would be if we got our hands on the police report, and I tried it myself, but they can't be emailed at this current moment in time, so it is what it is. Speaking of police reports, the police report for the incident involving Sarah getting her arm slammed by Ezra was leaked on July 6th, and it gives a little more insight into what went down. The police officer doesn't mention a knife being pulled out at any point, and apparently Ezra closed the door rather than slammed it multiple times. I say apparently because that arm injury doesn't seem to look like someone just closing a door. And for all we know, the officer just wrote things down in their own way to explain the events, kind of like how some people exaggerate and others don't. But either way, we know for sure Ezra damaged Sarah's arm with the car door. Now I want to reiterate that a lot of what we went over are just allegations and he said she said type situations, so there's no way to make an official answer for lots of what we went over. With that being said, I think it's a good idea to go over each case and make a reasonable assumption on how things went down. The April 2020 choking incident seems to be just a really bad case of miscommunication and a feisty temper, but nothing more. Starting with the KKK call-out video in January 2022 though, it seems that Ezra has been on a slow public descent ever since. The March 2022 incident sounds like a drunk person getting out of hand, and now that we know that the April 2022 chair throwing and Vermont family incidents are connected, it's looking to be a case of he said she said, as the mother is defending Ezra as much as they can, whereas the media seems to be villainizing them as much as they can. Given they hid her reply on that GQ article, I'd be lying if I said something doesn't feel weird about that. Now the Tokata Iron Eyes situation does seem to be looking like a case to be made, but given that a lot of what we hear has only been from Chase Iron Eyes and his family's side of events, I'm not gonna jump the gun just yet until we hear Ezra themselves. Ezra was supposed to show up to a court hearing for that case this past July 12th, but there hasn't been any public news on that as of yet, so we probably won't know about that for a good while. What makes things so strange to me is that a lot of this so far is just allegations, but so many people are coming out about it. The Tokata stuff, Nadia and her experience, the family in Hawaii and Massachusetts filing protective orders, it's all so strange. Usually when I hear about allegations, I treat them as just that, but to hear so many people coming out them from around the world, I'm not gonna pretend like something isn't up with Ezra. It's looking to be that the drug use has caught up to them, and hopefully they get the help they need soon before they cause any more harm to themselves and those around them. Until the future though, this is all we have to go by, and now that we're all caught up with everything, I think it would be a great time for y'all to tell me your opinions in the comments below. Thank you for watching today's video, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, make sure to like and subscribe, and as always, with all of that out of the way, I will see you guys later.